So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Hey lovelies, welcome to Ria Bow Plus One. I'm Ria just outside London. I've got DB with me in Sydney. And yes, as always, we have loads of news for you over the weekend, taking a look at the week that's just gone. And my goodness, there's plenty of it, I have to say. I'm just going to bring up what is probably the biggest known story in the UK, and I'm also going to cover the fact that of the lesser known story, but the biggest story in the UK is they're going to stop whoever becomes the new Prime Minister in the UK from suspending Parliament to be able to leave with no deal on Halloween. So that's what's going on. So if you're outside the UK, the next Prime Minister gets picked, but I mean, they kind of call it a democracy, but it's not a people's vote thing. They vote within themselves. It's like their own voting bloc. And it's between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt. So because Boris Johnson will not come out and say, someone's asked him directly and said, will you suspend Parliament for the UK to leave to WTO terms? He's not answered. So they've held a vote, and here's the headline. Brexit no deal, no go. British MPs back bid to block shutdown of Parliament. British lawmakers have voted in favour of a bid to stop the future Tory Prime Minister, hotly tipped to be Boris Johnson, from suspending the UK Parliament to ram through, notice the wording there, ram through a no-deal Brexit. So, to pull it back a bit, Parliament hasn't changed, and we all know how difficult it is to get any... Imagine the person that you're married to. For you two to arrive at a decision, never mind however many hundreds are in Parliament, to get them all to go, yeah, we're on board. There is no sign of getting everybody on board. And the way to supersede that, or one of the ways legally, was to suspend Parliament, leave the EU and go to WTO. Well, they've done the vote. It's not going to happen. So I've still got a bet out as well that we will not leave on Halloween. So we'll have to see how this pans out. So there you go. We cannot leave on Halloween to WTO. Parliament has seen their way in blocking it. DB, what's your thoughts on this one?
I think it's just more saber rattling by a bunch of people that are just shaking in their boots at the fact that Deutsche Bank are going down, the whole little Shia thuggery that they had with Hezbollah around the planet are going down. The gnomes of Zurich are abandoning them, and pretty much there's a old prime minister is going to be hauled up and shown up to the world as a pedophile. So things aren't looking good there for the elitist carpet strollers in the EU. They have to form the biggest, ugliest, scariest silhouette they can and growl at the people and say, if you don't do what we want, it's going to be hell for you. But it's not. It's hell for them. And the whole thing going on is they're bluffing. They're bluffing and they're moaning and they're bleating. Their end is clear cut. And they can make it look as decisive and harumph and we really mean it as they want. But in the end, they're just farting in a phone box. Back to you, Rhea.
Okay, I'll read a little bit more. We'll go into the gnomes of Zurich or wherever it is a bit further down on the programme. I'll read a bit more of the headline. MPs in the House of Commons backed an amendment by a majority of 41, 315 to 274, which blocks the suspension of Parliament between October the 9th and December the 18th, unless a Northern Ireland executive is formed. So it looks like there's a glimmer of hope. Is it a glimmer of hope? No, that there's another way legally through to get out of the EU. But there's powers to be that are not going to let us out. The banksters, and as I've said before, personally, I can't see the difference between big organised crime, government and banksters, and those kind of interests, that kind of power just doesn't want us to leave because they stand to lose too much money and their future isn't looking as rosy. It goes on to say, the vote is to blow for Boris Johnson, who is a front runner to become Britain's next Prime Minister, who has refused to take the prolonged suspension of Parliament off the table as a backup measure to see the UK leave the EU on October the 31st. It now becomes increasingly difficult for such drastic action to take place. Okay, so it doesn't look like 100% block, but it looks like it's possible. Amidst a story that isn't so out there, which is absolutely fascinating, going on to the UK PM. So she's been in the UK going, yeah, we're negotiating this, that and the other. I was once a chief negotiator for finance, so I sort of know how this thing works. I did it for a long time. And here's a headline: idle threat, ? Bernier reveals Theresa May, quote, never used a no-deal Brexit as a bargaining chip. So rule one of negotiation is to know your hand and to know your opposition's hand. That's good to know. Can you know it all? You can know your own hand, but not so much their hand. But you start with, I'm just not going to, well, let's say bend over. I'm not going to do that, right? So that's where you start. You're prepared to walk out the first meeting. If you want to be reasonable, come and talk to me. I'm having lunch down the pub or whatever. She didn't do this, according to this headline. It goes on to read, Theresa May and her ministers, quote, never used a threat of no-deal Brexit in talks with the EU. According to the chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, despite the outgoing PM's insistence the UK must keep the option on the table. In an interview with the BBC Panorama, because we trust those, to be aired on Thursday night at 9 p.m. British summertime, Bernier revealed that May and her Brexiteer negotiating team did not use no deal as a bargaining chip, claiming that UK officials always knew such a threat would not impress Brussels. Well, what do you say about that? Case the prees, DB.
Oh, she was just a water carrier for those people. Just a water carrier. She is just such a... And now she's coming across trying to, didactic, point the finger and say all sort of things. Good God, woman, how many files on pedophilia did you lose when you were in charge, when you were the person who was in charge of don't lose these files department? How many trips across did you make trying to tell the British public you were serving them when it was a total inversion of the truth? You know what the truth is, Theresa? She's got no idea. This whole upper class echelon is starting to crumble because it's thin, it's shallow, it's weak, it's self-centered, narcissistic, and it has no idea of what real humanity is about. You got Prince Philip getting his toothpaste scrolled with a silver key scrolled onto his brush by his butler every morning. You've got, Princess Anne and her, running around up their ponies. You've got Prince Andrew. Good God knows what he's got up to. This whole thing is going to run through this privileged class like a dose of salts, and Yahoo, bring it on, because it's just about time. This whole nonsense going right down to charging people license for their TV, let alone charging people over 75. That's their life. It's the one comfort they've got. A lot of these old people, they haven't got enough to eat, and freezing cold when they haven't got heat, and this whole TV. That's just an illustration and a pivot point on this whole ridiculous sense of appropriation that this upper class seem to have in England. Throw them to the wolves, make them walk the plank, and all that other good stuff. Back to you, Rhea.
Absolutely. I think from a governmental point of view is once you get your head, if you only knew one thing about government to establish whether they're your friend or not, is inheritance tax. That alone should tell you they are not your friends. So you work your butt off to give your kids a head start, they're not going to let you do it. Do you know what I mean? That's a fact. And I think in the UK it's 250k and above. Well, you can't, in a lot of the UK, you can't buy a broom cupboard for £250,000. You know what I mean? So that alone should be enough that they are not your friend. Do you know what I mean? That's certainly enough for me. Not that I need any convincing. Okay, so let's go to one of your stories. I'm going to be playing some audio, DB. What are you going to serve up for us today?
Well, just while we've got Tommy standing up for people, and you know, I'm not a mad Tommy supporter. I'm not a mad Tommy supporter. I you know, a fair go where it's due. He had some cojones and he got there to highlight and shed some light on the grooming gangs in Britain. One situation has happened here where in Sydney where a teenager was drugged and raped over a 12-year period after her school formal. She was only 18, but the guys that basically spirited her away from a train station and implied her full of GBH, which is a rape drug, and they're Turkish. They've been sent to jail for 28 and 26 years, respectively. That'll be the rest of their lives, these scumbags. Why we need to import this sort of thinking. Now, I know, yeah, it's a mindset. And there's Jungian archetypes. Jung said, 28 archetypes of human behavior? Well, you know, and this goes, you know, beyond races and means. But there is also a mindset. And there's a mindset amongst Islam with a certain amount of people that would do this. Not all. We've got, 600,000 odd Muslims here. This is the periphery, and they're just as embarrassed as these scumbags as we are. But it needs to be stamped out. This attitude towards females and towards women. It's not the cave days anymore where you could just grab Ugg by the hair and drag her into the cave. You know, it's not going on. This is just medieval, and it really cheeses me off. Back to you, Ray. I'm glad they got the time they did, though, and they won't do that time easy either, mate. Back to you, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's certainly. It seems to me that my voice of reason says I see progression within getting these the genuine baddies. And sorting out the whole problem that's related to it, and it is colossal. There looks to be a lot of complicit behaviour going on between hushing stuff up, the media's involved. You know, there's just so many high power involvements. This seems to move very slowly, but yet if they want to implement something that they're on board with, they can do it overnight. And this isn't a new thing. It is like a gridlock system in terms of the people. So it's not moving quick enough, DB, is my take on that.
Yeah, and it's the power of three that they use against us, really, because, you know, two's not enough and four's too many. If they use their trident of politics, okay, green light to everything, open door, wink and a nod, and they use their second point on that trident as their media, which, let's face it, they've still got control of the media. You can be a deep state operative within a political situation, passable to another deep state operative. Now, these people are the minority. They're getting squeezed out of play, but they're still able to be able to sneak something under the door, get it through to their cobbers, like in America, MSNBC, of course, and all these other fake news outlets, and you know, the UK's full of them. And they know that small bit of fluff will get promulgated and formed into just a massive Death Star that's coming for us. You know, people, the light is shown on that. It's already it's getting illuminated to be the big fat bubble of empty that it is, and clever people are noticing now. Slower on the uptake, not slower on the uptake, but just too blimmin' busy with life and getting the kids to school and getting lunches and paying tax and having to work and taking a quick lunch break, trying to get some food down their face. By the time they get back from work, they're too tired to look up a lot of this. But it's even then, it's still getting through to them. I'm noticing in the general consensus and on the street is that people people have an inbuilt BS meter, and sooner or later, their sense of fairness, even if it doesn't affect their wallets, get plucked and gets played. And this is what's happening now, I feel, Rhea. Back to you.
Well, good comment, my friend. I get that. Okay, so we're going to move on from that one. I've got some audio here. We're going to move over to the US, and we've all heard the phrase "the squad," haven't we? Donald Trump comes out. President Trump says, "Well, you don't like it, go home." Oh, sacred blur! They're all out. That's racist. So, to me, they've injected motive. So I believe that, because I don't know what his motive is, but I believe his motive is, look, you hate it so much, just leave. Then you've got other news outlets, well, they call themselves news outlets. You know, your MSNBC. I mean, MSNBC is spectacularly not a news outlet. It's just a Dem's mouthpiece, isn't it? But anyway, that's just my view, though. So they've injected the narrative of racist because there's 4 black women up there, or sort of brownie black and all that kind of stuff. So they've said, "Oh, you're racist," and they've injected their belief of motive as a truth. So, and Lord knows they may believe that. I just think, God, yeah. So where does that leave us if you're white in the US or UK and someone that's black, brown, whatever, different skin colour, looks a bit different, stands up and says something and you critique them? By default, are you racist? Does that add a massive get out of jail card for anybody that isn't white, basically, or that isn't indigenous, let's say? Let's play up a bit of, so I'm going to go with Elon Omar and this whole thing going around the internet saying she married her brother. Right, so I'm going to play a bit of audio for you now. This is Glenn. I like Glenn, talking about the facts of he's got some documents here to say exactly what's going on. So I thought I'd just put this out there just to cut through all the hyperbole and so on. Here it comes. Here's Glenn talking about Elon Omar.
Now, see if this sounds like a big story to you. A current member of Congress may have married her brother for immigration purposes and tax purposes and then lied about it. The same member of Congress also clearly violated federal and state tax law. Now, this sounds like a supermarket headline, but it's not. It's not coming from a conspiracy theorist website. No. It's coming from the oh-so-credible Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Now, Omar and her representatives, the immunity here is apparently off the charts because the mainstream media will not go near this story. It's not that they don't care, because they would care if it was anybody else. They are making a conscious choice to stay away from this story because perhaps they're part of the squad. But let me give you the headline from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. New documents revisit questions about Representative Elon Omar's marriage history. Now, when the story first surfaced in 2016 that she may have married her own brother to get around immigration laws, Omar called it baseless rumors. It's just crazy internet stuff. But last month, as the state of Minnesota invested campaign finance violations by Omar, it found that she had filed federal taxes in 2014 and 2015 with her current husband, Ahmed Hersey, even though she was still legally married to a different Ahmed with the last name of Elmi. So the two Ahmeds, and you're going to have to pay close attention here because there's two Ahmeds. Remember, there's Ahmed Hersey, her current husband, and Ahmed Elmi. Now, let me walk you through this. From this point, I'm just going to go with the last names of her two husbands, Hersey and Elmi. Now, this is how Omar's campaign orders her marriage timeline. Listen to this. In 2002, when she was 19, Omar marries Hersey. That's her current husband. She marries Hersey. According to the Star Tribune, they married in their faith tradition, those are in quotes, in Minnesota, which means because it's the married in the faith tradition, they didn't file any paperwork, so she wasn't officially married to him. Omar and Hersey proceed to have 2 children together over the next 6 years, but then they decide to divorce. But remember, they were never officially married. They just got a divorce in their faith tradition. Not a legal divorce because they weren't legally married. The following year, Omar now is 26, and she legally gets married to a different Ahmed Elmi. He's 23. So it was a quick rebound. And this one, she doesn't want to marry in her faith tradition. She marries in the legal tradition. He's 23. She identifies him as a British citizen. Now, according to the Star Tribune, Elmi's school records show he went to high school in St. Paul and attended North Dakota State University. 2 years later, in 2011, Omar and Elmi divorce in their faith tradition. But I thought they were married not in their faith tradition, they were married in the legal tradition. Well, whatever that is, they decide not to legally divorce. So in 2012, Omar gets back together with her first sort of husband, Hersey, the father of her 2 children. That year, they have a 3rd child together. So she just went off and married somebody else, but got a divorce in the faith tradition, but not really a divorce. Goes back to her husband, who she had a faith divorce. Following year, she gets elected to Minnesota's State House of Representatives. Now remember, in 2014 and 2015, Omar and Hersey, the faith tradition husband, file joint tax returns, but they're still not legally married. She was still legally married to Ahmed Elmi, so I guess it was just a clerical error. The following year, she gets elected to the Minnesota State House of Representatives, and her campaign is plagued with allegations that Elmi is not just her lover and her husband, but instead her brother, that she married for immigration purposes. According to the Star Tribune, new documents reveal efforts by Omar's campaign in 2016 and again in 2018 when she was elected to the U.S. House to keep her marriage to Elmi out of the media. In 2016, Omar's campaign releases the names of 6 of Omar's siblings, but only their first names, and Ahmed Elmi is not on the list. In 2017, while serving in the Minnesota House, Omar legally divorces Elmi. But I think she's still married to Ahmed, the first one, right? Then there's a small matter of possible perjury, because in her divorce proceedings, Omar claims that she hasn't seen or made contact with Elmi since 2011. That's under oath. Unfortunately, there are social media posts with photos of Omar and Elmi together in London in 2014. Oops. That content was deleted after Omar began running for political office. Now, the Star Tribune says it's been unable to independently obtain the original posts. They say the Star Tribune is skeptical of the posts that are still viewable on what it calls conservative activist sites like PJ Media. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You could easily find out if that picture has been altered.
Okay, so you get the idea, right? So Elon Omar, she is one of what they're calling the squad or the squib, whatever you want to call it. So she's out there dissing America, dissing American values, dissing President Trump, shouting racism. You have the Imam of Peace, Imam Tawhidi, who was interviewed by Cadence Owens, the wonderful Cadence Owens, says she's a terrorist with lipstick on. So what have we got going on? So we've got a lot of controversial stuff about Ilhan Omar's situation, all this stuff going on. But yet we have another situation where it looks like from the outside, the press are complicit in not giving you the information that Glenn Beck just did. So again, another example of what looks like complicit behaviour between illegal goings on and the media. DB, what's your thoughts on this one?
Oh, it goes deeper than that. I mean, she is a total Marxist plant, and she needs the light shown on her. Her father, Noor, he was in Said Barr's Somalian regime, mate. She's not some sort of tent-dwelling, shivering little refugee. She lived in total comfort in a compound, and even then, when Barra was being, taken down, they lived in comfort and they were jetted out of the country. Okay. Now, her father's a war criminal and he's currently living in America. He came in under being one of Said Barre's victims, but he was a party propagandist, and he was responsible for all the ideological aspects of the red-green revolution over there. He worked for the Marxist-Stalinist regime, right, as a teacher of teachers. That's what his job was. So he's got her totally schooled up. He would have been taught MK Ultra Russian techniques on social media manipulation, the whole bit. Now, Said Barr, you've got he's living in the US. He and other Somalians like Yusuf Abdi Ali, he killed thousands for Bahrain, escaped to the West, and they were not vetted properly before entering the country. Wonder why? Barra was a dictator. He was connected to Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. Now, Ali's a convicted war criminal. He did all the killings himself, Ali, but he ran a mechanized division that was responsible for 200,000 deaths. And he was located in the US working as security at Dulles International Airport. Let me take your bags, sir. And driving for Uber. Imagine getting picked up by this cat. He reportedly lived at one time in Alexandria, Virginia. Oh, it's home of the CIA. Funny that. Ali was a colonel in the Somalian army, and we're talking about the deep state CIA here, folks. He was a colonel in the Somalian Army 5th Mechanized Brigade in 87. Now, these guys have come over, and this scurrying little rat, Omar, is the detritus that's left behind because they're still carrying their political folly. Now, I would get her father, I would apply the biggest boot to his backside and send him flying like a comet out of the country. And all this detritus, all this Marxist Somalian, so they did some wet work for the deep state CIA. That isn't America now. Get rid of these scum. And this, we've had Channel 9 here in Australia going, oh, President Trump's called these women of color, blah, blah, blah. Man, they don't mention one thing, that they're anti-Semitic, racist, little manipulated pigs who are doing the work of useful idiots. They're going to get thrown under the bus, just like creepy porn lawyer did. Their time will come. And this whole marriage fraud that she's carried on with, it's quite funny when she'll be the one, basically, for want of a better word, impeached. She'll be silent. She'll be kicked out. She'll be just a stain on history, as they all will. But at the moment, even though they're giving crazy old Nancy a bit of a hard time, she'll handle it because it's all the obfuscation she wants. But Trump has to use it at the moment. It's the right time. He has to call them exactly what they are, communists. They're not even socialists. They're communists. They're thugs. They're political thugs, but that's all right. They're waving. They're full of themselves because they've got confidence because they've been let to go that far. You wait till the thread comes to the end and they find out that all their confidence was for naught because they've been being played. And, all of this will come to the light. But at the moment, the repugnance and the sheer racism and just the vile energy that comes off these four beasts is enough. If anybody's an empath to any certain sort of degree, they'll look and listen and take in the energy that these four are putting out and just shake their heads and go, you're kidding, aren't you? Because they're vile creatures. Back to you, Rhea.
Right, okay, so there's a bit of detail for you guys. Maybe you want to look into that yourselves, but I'm going to pull it back to a generalization with, we have a situation growing, I believe, in the West where the PC culture is happening. We're in it. We are definitely in this thing. And if they manage to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, use these techniques to make people like Elon Omar and the like, just someone that isn't indigenous, let's say, it's really not a skin colour thing, not for me anyway, is if you're indigenous and you want to stand up and critique, a voice of reason genuinely, if we carry on going the way we're going, and if that person is of a minority and you are unable to critique them, our social order is only going one place, and that is downhill. And we will hand it. Business is supposed to serve people, and we are definitely, in my view, leaning towards a corporate world where people serve business, and that is not what's supposed to happen in capitalism and the free marketplace of ideas. So just pull that back again. If someone indigenous critiques someone that isn't indigenous, and by default you are attacking them, or you are a racist, or you are a something, we have a colossal problem. And I do believe that Western society, the way it's going, because the kids are coming through with this attitude, that we're teetering on the edge of it, and I think it could plummet much quicker. Pulling it back again to President Trump saying, look, if you don't like America, you seem to hate it, go back, just sod off. Do you know what I mean? And I get that. It's sort of like, life is full of problem solving, isn't it? And if you get a bit frustrated one day, you just go, just enough already. But they've injected the narrative of racism. It's a massive problem, guys. And it's slipping through like a snake, I tell you, where people, the soft censorship is in, isn't it? It is in, and it's being taught via the internet. And this is a major concern, guys. Don't go for the PC thing, and know when someone is injecting a narrative in. So that's my take on that. I thought that was a great take from Glenn for me to understand a bit more about what's going on, but me doing the general thing and simplifying, because it's the only way that I can really understand it and memorize it, is the PC culture is going to take us to a really bad place when you can't critique someone that's within the minority. Do you have any thoughts on that one, DB?
Yeah. The Marxist think tank that visited Harvard in 1929, and I'm just forgetting the name at the moment, I should remember. Anyway, it taught political correctness the Russian way, and they devised a way that could be used in a Western way, without still in service, but not in service of the great Russian way. And they manipulated it to form political correctness in the way it is now, through the Greens and through this and everything, by taking a small sliver of the DNA of human decency that is real. Yes, the planet should be cleaned up. We need to keep an eye on it. Yes, women have undeniable rights and they're being treated badly, but they have taken that, inverted it, put it through the amplifier into Me Too, where they're just using it for their own political ideas. Something decent and right is being mutated into this beast that is trying to swallow up everything. The same with everything they do. They put it through the mutation device, they invert it, and then they amplify it through their mockingbird media to seem as if it's reality. It is not. Human decency is at the core, and around it is a circumference circle of political correctness. And this is always a force pushing in. There's no freedom or liberty to it. It's pushing in, pushing in, pushing in. And toward the one sanctity a human being will ever have is his own thoughts in his head. And crikey, they even want to get that now. So, no, enough. And it's not a matter of just saying no, enough. Things have been taken a lot further past this stage now. This evil is being met. It's being beaten like an arm wrestle, to the point now where we can say we're winning, and we can have confidence in that. But at the same time, we're going to have this residue and detritus and ugly energy pervading our 3D world for the next 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years. So we're going to have to work at just putting the information out there. Me, myself, I just want to put information out there. People can make their own mind. They can look and go, oh, that's BS. They can look and go, oh, they can pass it 20 times and not think of it twice. As long as it's out there every day, then, because when people are left to make their own decisions, not forced in this Marxist form of political correctness, but if they're just left to make their own decisions and the information is out there, that's free will, and free will works. And it always will, Rhea. And free will and the truth and the light, it sounds cliched, but it will always win out. It's a stronger frequency. Back to you, mate.
Absolutely. Everything above absolute freezing vibrates and resonance exists. So, yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. So just to round off this one, lovely listeners, I ask you, do you see at a social level the power shifting to minorities? There's your question. Do you think that minorities have got more power than the majority? Question one. And then the statement that I'm making is, one of the ways this is going on is because we are unable to critique minorities through fear of attack. So then you find yourself trying to bolster a negative because they're going to go, you're a racist or something. And that's quite difficult to prove. It's difficult to prove a negative. So it's all you can say is I'm not a racist, but then you've got to be comfortable with that, and you don't want anything out there that even remotely makes you sound like a racist. So there you go. The power through political correctness and a neuro-linguistic program, which I believe for one is with intent, is moving the power from the majority to the minority because we are unable to critique a minority through fear of attack. There it is in a nutshell. Let's move on. DB, do you want to take one of yours before I take another audio clip?
Yeah, Shakes Merkel has come out and said she can do the job of Chancellor amid health concerns, even though she's shaking all over the place like the electric boogaloo. She has denied concerns about herself, and she stated out to carry her job. She said, and I quote, "I can carry out this role. I have a strong personal interest in my health." And that's basically it. She's shaking all the way to the bank. Her little apprentice, she's trying to push forward and she's trying to guide her and shut her up when she's making obvious mistakes. Now, look, this creepy faction is shrinking. But old Shakes Merkel, she'll be out there soon. Good grief. What a loss to the world. Back to you, Rhea.
Here's the thing that I learned the other day. Within the EU, the 28 member states that they don't call countries anymore. I'm going to be talking about nationalism on Sunday as well, but I'm not going to do it today. Is out of those 28 member states, I assumed, you know what they say about assumption, the mother of all. I assumed that all countries had a referendum within those 28. I thought every one of those 28 countries that they now call member states had a referendum to go, do you want in on the EU or not? Well, it turns out one of them didn't. They were forced in. DB, which one do you think didn't have a referendum?
Italy?
Germany.
Of course.
How nuts is that? Do you know what I mean? I only learned that the other day. You're kidding me.
No.
They didn't ask the German public whether they wanted in on the EU or not.
Into the voting booth, schnell.
Yeah, no, none of that. They didn't even tell them there was a voting booth. They just went, right, you're in the EU.
You would like to hear how you voted?
That is so crazy nuts, man. I believe that. The source I got it from, I trust, so I believe that to be true. Do I need to absolutely source that? I do, really. But at the minute, as I'm on air now, I believe that. I don't think Germany had a referendum. So, like, you're in the EU, and that's that. Because anybody outside of Europe listening to this, Germany is a massive mess, a huge mess. And they did, England and the other countries, you can say, well, look, we were duped. We didn't know that when we did the referendum to join the trading blocs. That's all it was, a single market. They didn't talk armies and EU armies and all that kind of stuff. Germany didn't even get a say in it. How nuts is that? That is tyrannical behaviour at its most obvious. Okay, I'm going to move on to another one. So we covered the Shakes Merkel. Angela Merkel can still do the job, apparently. Right, we're going to move it on to another one. Here comes another one. Right, so I'm not going to play all of this, but I do want to play something because I think it's really significant. I've talked about it on air, and I want to cover again. This is another Glenn Beck clip because I love his audio as well, and I like Glenn. I'm going to say what everybody says. Do I agree with everything? No, but I do like him. I find him very listenable. And this is about Elon Musk's Neuralink. Okay, so this is a big deal that isn't really being spoken about as the big deal it is. To me, it's a huge deal, right? This is now official. Transhumanism has started. We've got transhumanism in the sense that you can have a bionic arm or an electric leg or something, but in the brain, in the core, is absolutely nuts. So I'm going to play you some audio, then we're going to talk about this. The singularity is the headline. Elon Musk unveils plans to merge human brain with AI. Check this out.
Well, Elon Musk has just announced something that makes that look like child's play. He just announced, with neuroscientists at his side, something that is called Neuralink. Now, he says at the beginning of his talk that he's doing this because he believes, and so does DARPA, that no one is working on benevolent AI. They're all just trying to get to AGI first, because whoever gets to AGI first is going to rule the world. But he has been warning, and others have been warning, and DARPA has been warning and working on benevolent AGI. We need to make sure that whatever it is we're creating doesn't look at us like rodents and decides to exterminate us. We won't be able to understand it because it will be thinking so fast. So what he's been trying to do is, how do we bond with AGI? How do we fuse? This is transhumanism. This is another thing that Stephen Hawking warned about and was misunderstood by the end of his life, where he said there won't be any Homo sapiens left by 2050. What he was talking about is humans as we know it will be over, because we will be so augmented with technology that you won't be able to survive if you're just a natural human. So he introduces the Neuralink. And again, his goal is to be able to interface with AI so we are not left behind. But what the first phase is an upgrade of what my daughter has been going through. And what he introduced was 10,000 times better than the latest technology. 10,000 times. He says that it will be ready for humans in a year. And it's what's amazing is it's like a sewing machine. It has to be done by a robot because the probes are the size of a human hair. And they have to be threaded in between everything and put exactly into the right place of the brain. And he has built this machine that is looks like a robotic sewing machine. And it implants these, but so you know, this surgery is a really delicate thing to do today. He believes, and he says that this machine will do it within a year, and he showed the machine. It will be like LASIK surgery. You'll be able to go in and have these implants put into your head in an hour and then walk out. Now that's phase one. Phase two is to help people walk, remember, do different things that for some reason, whether it's a stroke or Alzheimer's or whatever, it will repair the brain. It will not repair the brain. It will just be the bridge. For instance, it will record. So if you're driving to work every day, you see certain things, and that helps you remember where you are. So it will record all of those things that you're seeing. And when you are lost and you can't figure out, it automatically pushes those things out. Now, this is remarkable. You can't move your arm. You can't move your leg. It will push you, and it will remap the brain for anything that is broken. Phase 3, which he says is around the corner. Phase 3 is a Neuralink. You want to learn how to speak Russian? Download it. And you don't have to go get chips or anything else. You will think it. And Google Translate, or whatever the translate system is that's online, will be a part of you. So you'll be able to understand, you'll be able to read, you'll be able to speak. You want to learn something, it will just be downloaded into you. More importantly, it will record all of the things that you have done. It will map your brain, and it will be a two-way street. So you want to send messages, you want to whatever, you will be able to think it, and it will be done because you will be part of the internet. Now, the real problem with this is who's controlling this? Because you won't be able to compete. For instance, let's say we go to socialized medicine. This technology will continue, but if we have socialized medicine, this, I guarantee you, will only be done by the rich. If it's only be done by the rich at the very beginning, are those people that are uplinked, you're not going to be able to compete with them. What do they do with this until all of us get it? And if all of us get it, who's controlling it? And can they just shut you off? They don't like you're becoming dangerous. You are saying the wrong things, so we're going to deperson you. We're already seeing this happen with tech now. They're building ghettos. But if everyone is super, super, super smart, and they can just cut you off from that and turn your system off, and you become a monkey. What is coming our way?
There you go, guys. So there you go. There's a bit of it. The Neuralink. I was talking about this 5 years ago on air. I think, just to pull it back a little bit, the two biggest stories globally have been, although they're just coming out now, although I was talking about it about 5 years ago, and will be, one is the blockchain ledger, and two is Neuralink as we merge with computers, which has already happened. Everybody's on a computer already merging with it. We're using it to enhance our memories, da-di-da-di-da-di-da. So we've got all that stuff going on. So the two biggest stories, and they're going to be around, is a permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledger, which is disrupting finance. And let's face it, you follow the money, and it's always corrupt, isn't it? Well, you can't do that within a permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledger, one, and the other one is the Neuralink. So as this comes upon us, and it's coming upon us, there's going to be a bunch of people, I would say generally older, that go over my dead body. And then you got the young ones that are going to be queuing up for it. You got the ones that have had strokes or have got Alzheimer's. This technology won't be able to move quick enough. This is a massive story that it sort of came and went like it never happened. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you know what I mean? This is a huge story. Okay, DB, Neuralink, what's your thoughts?
Look, there's a simple question. Look, there's a list you can go down. But the first question on your list, when you question whether this upcoming AI relationship, because it's inevitable, it's going to have to be broached. So is it service to self or service to others? And you decide, okay, let's look at the China social credit system. That's service to self. That's using AI in its most nefarious purpose to trap, harness, and take all individuality away from people and replace it with control. That's the outside of the circle. That's the circumference pushing in on the inside, the individual. But what Musk is doing, he's talking normally about tech that seems otherworldly and over the top. But the thing is, this has existed for 50, 60 years. And it's just that the elites think that the cattle, us, haven't got the responsibility to be able to use it properly. They believe in culling the herd and keeping the levels down in a nice controlled system. Well, that can be done in a humane way, more so than these carpet-strolling, cold-blooded creatures could ever think of doing. It's about using this tech to predate any cancer-forming a threat to your life. You know, people could live to 120 years right now. Cancer doesn't need to exist. All different sorts of things don't. And it's not about going in and altering this and altering that and changing the human being as a mammal. These things exist now, and the elites have been using them. But they don't trust it to us, the great unwashed, because I think, you know, we'll look down the barrel and boom, you know, you've got the Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd shotgun scenario happening. It's not like that. And what Elon is doing is he's just talking the same way to the world. He's saying this is here and this can be done and could be happening. And they're going, whoa, hey, well, this is a part of the tech world that exists. He just believes in equality and people getting the information on all levels. It's out there. He's put it out there and this is happening. There's a whole tech world that's equal to this and much, much, much more happening out there. So it's a good break of the ice to get people to go, hey, whoa, is he going to use it for nefarious purpose? I don't think so. I still believe in this bloke. I think that he has intent and knowledge. He has gnosis just how much this tech could be used in a nefarious purpose against us. But there's always got to be safeguards put in. And there always will be by people, you know, even if there's people not involved in any project like this, there's going to be people sitting around going, okay, boom. And they'll put in safeguards and they'll make sure they're going to work. So tech like this isn't going to get out of hand. If this can help human beings live, be healthy, be happy, be productive, cut their contributing workday life down to 3 days a week so they can form a stronger functional family unit, which the globalists are trying to break apart through sex wars, cultural wars, money wars, any war they can lay on us at the moment. If that can help consolidate and galvanize a better perfunctory family unit and a stronger community, you know, as a result, and I'm talking a liberal community, you know, I'm no sort of right-wing prude here. I mean, all these things that they're bringing up and they're inverting and they're amplifying to be bad could be just sorted out in a perfunctory manner, with speed, ease, and grace, without these creeps involved. Back to you, Rev.
Totally. Hedonistic minorities. Minorities, I'm in for helping. Hedonistic minorities, whereas going, not so good. I'm not so into that. Okay, so I think you make a valid point. I mean, you could raise the question with, this is coming, like I said, 5 years ago I was talking about technocracy. I knew the Neuralink was coming. I was already in and amongst the cryptography world as this permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledger was being born when we read the white paper. And it's like, oh, right, governments can't, it's inflation proof. You can't manipulate it. There's some big changes coming around the corner. That led me to learn about technocracy and the way it's going to work. It's kind of scary. There's no getting away from it. It's kind of scary stuff. So one question is humanity and the governance structure that's currently in place, which calls themselves a capitalist society, which it isn't, it's actually crony capitalism, i.e. the people serve business, where it should be business serves the people. Are we ready for this? Because we still haven't managed to navigate this crony capitalism and acknowledge the downfall of the free marketplace of ideas. If we can't get the free marketplace of ideas back to where it should be and recognized and respected, to bring in AI is not such a big deal. AGI is a big deal. Artificial general intelligence, it's massive, and they're racing to see who can get there first. I have big concerns about it. I think, like you say, we've said it before, you've said it before, DB, it's like a fork or a knife. It's a tool, and it can be used for good and used for bad. And at the moment, within the current sphere, the very toxic sphere of the political scene, we need to re-establish that free marketplace of ideas, which we are losing. Make no mistake about it, we're losing. Because you don't like something, that person can't talk. That's nuts. And then because I don't like something, we're going to send you to prison. For the first time in 100 years, a journalist gets sent to prison for highlighting rapists. This is where the world's going. So I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's inevitable as well, or certainly could be. But yet you look in the real world at its current date and what a mess it's in. We have global finances about to collapse. And Liz, you can I guarantee it that this collapse is here. The Iranian currency is devalued by 85% in the last year. Is quite a common story. The global finance have backed themselves in a corner. There's only one place this thing can go. There is only one place. Then you put in the equation a permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledger, and it's just going to eat the finance world. Again, all this stuff I'm going to be talking about on Sunday Live, taking comments. And I'll know at that point in time that a lot of people listening are political junkies. So it's going to be a difficult listen for some, but I'm going to say it anyway, because this thing is coming and is coming fast, because we have this current real world situation that's really moving at quite a snail's pace in terms of progress, mental health and so on, and the control systems are stepping in harder because all of a sudden there's a mass voice of the people and they don't like what we're saying. And then we have this tech side of things that's moving like a hare in comparison. It's moving so quickly and people are going to get caught out. So there you go. All right. So I thought I'd bring that up about the Neuralink. I find it fascinating and it's a good time to be alive. DB, do you want to do... Oh, right. No, we can't close out now because as I promised DB, he's got a woo-woo section to cover. DB, what have you got for us on the woo-woo section?
Oh, crikey. I forgot about the woo-woo section. Good on you, mate. I think this is pretty cool to cover still. If you permit me just to talk a little bit more about this. My understanding of the financial situation that is currently being attacked and via Iran and its dodgy dealings with Deutsche Bank and the EU globalists cabal through the Shia Hezbollah and Hamas killing people in Yemen. Okay. So that has decided your time's come, you're going to get taken out. So from what I can understand, and there'll be a lot of people that correct me, and you must probably want to correct me here too. Right? So you've got the Committee of 300 on the top. And under that, you've got the City of London Corporation, right? That's a square mile. Under that, you have BIS, IMF, and the World Bank, right? Now, they go, okay, we've got this sorted out. We've got our writing instructions. They go to the group of 7, group of 20, and group of 30, which is sort of pretty much the names as Zurich, right? And underneath that, they've got, and I'll quickly read out the names. They've got Bank of America, Bank of China, Bank of New York, Mellon, Bank Populaire, Barclays, BNP Paribas, Citigroup, Commerzbank, Credit Agricole, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, Dexia, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Ingbank, JP Morgan Chase, Lloyds Banking Group, Mitsubishi, UFJ, Mitsubishi, Morgan Stanley, Nordea, Royal Bank of Scotland, Santander, Societe Generale, State Street, Sumitomo, Mitsui, UBS, Unicredit Group, and Wells Fargo. So you've got all those people then controlling good human beings in countries. You know, remember, you control money, you control a country, you control food, you control the individual. That's one of the mantra of the cabal. So I think that this it's a reality now. We're looking at Bitcoin, and we're looking at serious, tangible alternatives to the control of these demonic bankers, and it's a really healthy outlook. Back to you, mate.
Oh, absolutely. God, I've been bleating on about it for years since Satoshi's white paper was 2009. I remember reading it and went, oh, okay then. We can see what's coming down the pipeline now. And of course, for most people, that they don't get it. They don't get, the children aren't taught in school how finance works. They're not, they're just not. They're not equipped to come out that school gate, and soon as you leave that school gate at the end of your early regular schooling years, you are looking debt firmly in the eye, and it is waiting for you at every opportunity. Apply for this loan. This is going to get you your shiny thing. And they're just not equipped to do this. They have, I tell you what's cornered them. Two things has cornered the banksters globally, this is. One is their own greed. Two is math. The math has cornered them, which is an absolutely, from an economist's point of view, is fascinating, because they knew it was coming. And the math is, they've just cornered themselves, because they're just, the greed, they chose to ignore it. When they took the US off of the gold standard in 71, they handed, which is the global reserve currency, which happens to be the US global reserve. I didn't know he was going to do this, otherwise I'd have this information here. I'm just going to grab a few facts for you lovely listeners in terms of the global reserve, if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. I'm just flicking through some stuff. Bear with me. I'm probably a couple of seconds away to get you this information factually. Here we go. So when the bankers removed Glass-Steagall and removed the gold standard so it wasn't pegged to anything, they handed the global monetary system to the banksters, right? Their primary thing is greed. When does greed know it's had enough? It doesn't know it's had enough, does it? And they knew they were going to fleece the system. They just knew it. But it happened to be they removed the gold standard from the global reserve. Global reserve currencies historically last between 80 and 110 years, okay? So historically, here's the global reserves. From 1450 to 1525, Portugal had the global reserve, and they had it for 75 years. From 1525 to 1635, Spain had the global reserve for 110 years. Between 1635 and 1710, the Netherlands had the global reserve for 75 years. Between 1710 and 1815, France had the global reserve for 105 years. And then between 1815 to 1925, the UK had the global reserve for 110 years. So far, we've got two lots of 75 years, two lots of 110 years, and one lot of 105 years. And the US has had the global reserve currency from 1925 to present date. So the US has had the global reserve for 88 years. So they're kind of in the middle historically of how long that system will run for before it fails and they move it on to another country or another structure. Bearing in mind this is all organised. Then in 2009, enter Satoshi's white paper on permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledger. So it's permissionless. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need to ring up the bank and go, can I? No, you don't need to do your own bank, right? So that's the permissionless part. The decentralized part is we know that if historically, if we focus power, distill power to a central point, it will become corrupt. It will go rotten, and we've seen it today in 2019. So we've got permissionless, we've got decentralized, then we've got blockchain, which is mined, which they can't get at, which really bugs them. This is the bit that they can't get at, the blockchain element of it. And then you've got decentralized, you've got permissionless, decentralized blockchain ledgers. So it's a recording of account that can be public. And they don't want it to be public. For goodness sake, it's illegal to audit the Bank of England. It's illegal to audit the Fed. And then all of a sudden, the blockchain is public. I mean, it's huge. And these things are coming along with, imagine this day in the future, BTC, Bitcoin, is going to eat the finance markets. We've had the statements coming out from the US. They are not happy. And Libra coin is nothing like BTC. Two different things entirely. Libra's using the branding of cryptocurrency. That's it. It's not decentralized, none of the above. So as we move forward to this world, you think in the future you'll have a chip in your head, right? And then all money will be digital, cash. There will be no cash in the future. And then you can think about a transaction and you'll make it via some kind in the future of cryptocurrency. What do you make of that, DB?
Again, it can be a brave new world if you want to make it one. But if you have the cancer still existing of a hierarchy that would use people as cattle, it's going to,
absolutely,
no brainer, turn into a control factor. So, and without this, communism is an Illuminati tool. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, ISIS, Illuminati tool, Antifa, Illuminati tool, white supremacist creeps, Illuminati tool. So you have to differentiate and walk a fine line to find the nuances of what they're really trying to do. I mean, to a lot of us, and maybe to a fair few people listening, it's glaringly obvious, mate. But to a lot of the people who are just shaking off the cobwebs and the icicles, they're going, oh, okay, look, and it's all hitting them at once. So, and it's not trust me, kid, just follow me. No, this isn't about anybody following anybody else. This is about formulating your own perfunctory idea and idiosyncratic vision of what's going on, and all power to you if it's a reality that doesn't align with mine. You've got all power to think that way and all power to talk that way regarding, and I'm thinking of Elon Omar at the moment. But somebody has to reply to say, if you hate this country so much, take a hike. I mean, that's a natural reaction. Sorry. And I tell you what, she has nefarious purposes and an agenda behind it, but I make that point. To move on with what's happening, yes, we have to be 24/7 to make sure that AI, well, it's being used against us at the moment, which is a good kicking point, a good wall to kick off from. But we've also got to realize its parameters of how it can be used. And I still feel that with Musk, we've got a man in the game. We've got somebody in Silicon Valley with enough honesty to his soul that will go, oi, that's, or he, he's weird in his thinking. He might be offbeat and all that to some people. But I trust him. I believe in what he's doing, and I trust him at the moment. But trust is what you've got to trust first before you trust anybody. You've got to trust your own trust. And my ability to trust lies solely on performance. That's all it's about, Rhea. And there are a few woo-woo things to cover. Have I got time, buddy? And thanks very much for the section. I'm sorry to I should have been a little bit more ready with some woo-woo stuff for you. Back to you.
Yeah, no, go for it. I mean, something from my point of view is when we do the news, you make reference points, and the only reference point that I understand is 0, and the rest is talk to me. So with that, you talk about the committee of this and the gnomes of that. And for you, you have that historic background. You've looked into it when you refer to it as a reference point. But I think for a lot of listeners, and I'm included in it, I don't know what they are. I mean, I see them as dark forces and they're a collective. To me, it's all very foggy and murky. So as you bring in these reference points to some of your background, I don't understand what they are. And I'm guessing that some other people don't understand what they are either. So if we don't understand what they are, it sort of doesn't work that well.
I have been hoping to purposely not be vague about it, but not concentrate on it too much, out of hoping that somebody would search some of this stuff. If I drop West Coast Coven System, or I drop something else, Bohemian Grove or something, they might search on it and come to their own conclusion. It's not about people listening to my opinion about it, because I'm just Neville Nobody. But it's about formulating this info and disseminating it for themselves and their own way of thinking and how they come up. But yeah, sure. When I talk about the West Coast Coven System, there is witchcraft, the occult, and black witchcraft, when I talk about service to self and service to others, that's right hand and left hand path. Left hand path is service to self. And a lot of that comes out in the black occult, though it's dressed up as service to others. And this is how they're drawing a lot of people in. Now, I'll refer to something called the wing. This is coming up on the West Coast now. They used to call it covens. Now they call them spaces. And it's taking in, this is all part of the Me Too sisterhood movement. Don't be fooled, women out there. There's nothing, there's some fantastic white Wiccans out there. They do some great work. They're healers. The original Delphi comes from 3 healers who used to travel from village to village. This isn't about white Wicca. It isn't about the lighter side healing. This is about, these guys are putting out things acting like women empowerment, business development, fellowship, academia, creative arts. It's fantastic. You'll affect change. It's, moving on from things like The Secret and all this sort of stuff. And 75 million in new funding chapters are opening up across the US in time for the 2020 elections. The investors include Valerie Jarrett and Megan Rapinoe. This whole thing is building. You see, what they're trying to do is just the same as the West Coast coven system really were boots deep into the Kavanaugh hearings. They were, Feinstein and all that whole crowd, mate. Trust me, that they're deep into it. And it was even stated that Hillary was belting over from New York to visit a coven system during the early 90s when she was with Bill in mid-90s. And this whole thing is part of the insidious energy going into what's happening at the moment. Part of the volatility, part of the just the whole negative aspect of the speak and what's going on. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not just Trump. I'm sure I was never a big fan of the guy, whatever. But again, I'm a fan of action and record. And what he's doing is outstanding. What he's doing for the planet is outstanding. He's a very staunch bloke, and he's one of the reasons that we've got to be optimistic at the moment, and the crew behind him as well. But when you get this outfit, the wing. When is a coven not a coven? A wing operates several covens around the country. They call themselves covens until recently, until news that Hillary attended a meeting came out. Then they switched the names of their meetings places to spaces, not covens. They did, the New York Times remembers in the Wayback Machine, dating from as late as April 4th, still lists the spaces as covens, And you got all this whole witchcraft is hip and witchcraft is fantastic rubbish. Their partners are Girls Incorporated, the Legal Aid Society, New York Village Street, Year Up, Ignite, When We All Vote. This is, serious bad stuff. So, witches at thewing.com, apply the Wing members portal. Stacey Abrams is a member. You've got to see what's behind all this, woman empowerment and all that. Look, I've known in my life some really, really staunch women. They're intelligent, they're funny, they're hip as, and they will not take any rubbish. And if they seen this coming, once they stop laughing, they'd most probably go to and destroy the place. Because they're just not having any of this rubbish. This is the type of stuff and bad energy and nefarious purpose that inspires a lot of the horrible stuff that goes on in the streets behind us. It's going to come more and more to the fore. It's poison. Thewing.com. Be aware. And it's very nefarious. And people go, oh, no, it's this. It's self-empowerment. It's this. Good grief. Don't be stupid. See the things that are in front of you. See this face act that's everybody's, you've got to get it at ages you. It is a data collection info for facial recognition. Just the same as the Nazis were making casts of the Himalayans in 1937. This is exactly the same thing. But through this, they can get people who don't have driver's licenses and, maybe young kids, right? So all you need is a triangle with the base going across your eyes down to the bottom of your chin, and they have your facial recognition. Okay, so look, don't be fooled. People are just, gurgling along going, oh, shiny, grab that. stop, think, and really take a critical view of what's happening in the world, because these people are not your friends. Back to you, Rhea.
There you go, guys. There's a little bit about it. So I remember the one thing I think that Covens, from what you were saying, are now called spaces. So that's quite an interesting concept that I'll think about a little bit more. And it's kind of, to me, to summarize, because some of that was moving a bit fast for me to digest, was there's the West Coast Coven, and that's changed to the Wing. And the Wing has changed the names of covens to spaces. That drives the negative energy, which is accumulative and compounds to put the world somewhere in the place it is today. And also to summarize that the kids or some people aren't smart enough to see the double play at hand. Is that right?
Well, sort of, yeah. No, the West Coast Coven system is not a particularly one thing. It's been around, crikey, since Salem, all right? And that comes from the Essex, which is from England. So, but all that aside, this is satanic. It involves Luciferian. It involves Illuminati cults. That's stretched to the judicial side. You've got judges, lawyers, cops. It's stretched to the political side. It's stretched to the media side. These people are involved. So now there is one particular coven who has decided to empower itself politically and socially, and they've called themselves the Wing. They would call their meetings covens because that's what they are, meeting places and meeting times. A meeting is a coven until Hillary visited and got press. And so they changed the name of these, people still call them covens, but this particular outfit calls its meetings spaces now. So you can come to a space and talk with your sisterhood about how much you hate Trump and oh my God, they're going to do this and we're going to all be dead in 12 years anyway. So, it's a way of bringing them in and recruiting, because within 2 to 3 years, those normally, left-leaning, quite naive people would be hardcore, triggered, goggle-eyed nutbars on the street. I will guarantee it, because this is social mind control using MK Ultra techniques that go way back to Egyptian days, Rhea, and that is woo-woo. I know I might be painting with a broad brush, but I am trying to hit on some topical points that are pertaining right to this very direct point in time, and that spreads back thousands of years. So taking that through that to this point of where they're organising their coven into a political situation, they're trying to make their social heroes through their media arm, like Rapinoe, and they're trying to make heroes out of them, of course. Everybody's got a right to speak. She has too. But to invert it and use it and deceptively recruit people with quite a naive attitude who just want to speak their political mindset, within 2 or 3 years, these people will be bug-eyed. It's just an obvious reaction to the way they're going to be processed, and processed like Nexium, etc., is exactly how they will be. Maybe not with the sex and the slavery and all that, but still with the same mind control aspect. Back to you, mate.
Yeah, I hear you. So that bit, I'm sort of the fact that there's dark forces of old and so on that still operate. I kind of get that. I guess from my point of view, and maybe you lovely listeners as well, is if a term comes up that I don't understand being used as a reference, but I don't understand what that reference is, I'm sort of from that point on, there's a bit that I miss when I'm listening. So that's my take on it. So I've heard you say, and I know nothing about this. Say, for example, we'll be doing a news story and you'll say, well, that goes to the gnomes of Zurich. I don't know what the gnomes of Zurich are. So from that point on, there's this like lump of information that I'm not privy to. So for me, it's when it's used as a reference, I need to understand that reference. That's, I guess, where I'm coming from.
Yeah, sure. And that's a really old term that's been used since, I think it was first coined way back in the 40s, but to reference the Swiss bankers. If you type it into, that word starts with G, we won't use, search engine, there's a Wikipedia page on them. So, it's not sort of some big secretive issue. The word's out in Skull and Bones now. The word's out on Scroll and Key. The word's out on all the secret societies that they're training their little bunces to be good little bunces, thinking with their one mind, in their secret societies. Trump isn't a secret societist. He isn't a ritualist. He doesn't make hand signs. The only sign I'm seeing him do is the delta feminine. And when you see that, that's the lower triangle formed to make, the delta triangle pointing down. But he doesn't put the thumbs up on the top. He doesn't do other, little telltale things with it. So he's just making a hand sign that has been trained by his media people to do. We're the people. Some reporters do it too, but they're not exactly. Now, when Merkel does it, with her thumbs up the top, that's a whole different story. And there's different things involved with the Illuminati and symbols to each other that means. It just means the Reich will, it means faith to the Reich, faith to their church. They're towing the line. They're being good little bunces. But it won't matter because their church is being destroyed and they have no island to stand on. They're going to be treading water real soon. And I'm not talking about months. So, hold out to see Hillary in a yellow-orange suit. You most probably like to see her in a coffin before you see her in an orange suit, but I'm good with either. I'm fine with both, Put her in an orange suit and chuck her in a coffin. I don't care. But I tell you what, we've got evil on the planet, and it's getting diluted, and it's getting hosed down the drain. Back to you, Rhea.
Okay, so from the woo-woo side of things, for me to understand is, from what you're saying, so what I should be doing and I'm not doing because I'm doing other things is if you make a reference, just type it in a search engine and go look at it.
No. I'm at fault. I should be more succinct. But sometimes we're on a time frame where I don't want to, a lot of people go, oh, right, I don't want to hear about this. They'd rather hear about the 3D aspects. And I'm learning more about the socio-political 3D aspects and I'm enjoying it. Sometimes when I bring up the more occult stuff, which, look, there is a tie into all of this, but at the moment, people have got a lot on their plate. So I don't want to take up heaps of time talking about the occult on what is ostensibly a news social happening page. It is about the globalism and its effects in our 3D environment. But I don't know if anybody really is that keen on digesting the occult reasons behind it, which is a huge, important part of it. Are we ready yet? I don't know. But you asking the questions is much better and a succinct way of me answering the very small amount that I know, and instead of, gibbering all over the joint. Back to you, Red.
Okay, yeah, so it's what I'm sort of quite math and scientist based kind of thing is I need those points of reference for clarity, and when they come up in a story, that's when I'm lost. And so you're making this reference to what's pushing this energy. I don't know who they are. And so that's kind of that's why I wanted to do the woo-woo section on the end, so people got to know who you are, what's on your mind, and for me and maybe the listeners to understand where you're coming from when this stuff gets dropped in a regular news story. On the woo-woo bit to start with, when you use the reference terminology, to have that somewhat cleared up in my mind would be dead useful. So tacked on the end of, at least for the near future, Rehobo +1, if we could say, right, you one of the terms that you use a lot, whatever one of that may be, break that down for me and maybe the listeners to try and understand.
Cool. Yep, love to. Like, can I? People might see with this news with Epstein coming up at the moment, they might hear about Baal, Baal, and the Canaanite, Canon. Now, this refers back to, they worshipped a god called Moloch. And Moloch's thing was the sacrifice of babies. I'm sorry to talk about this, Rio. I know you hate this talk, but just to edify some situations with this creep, Epstein. Baal's thing was sacrifice of children through fire. Moloch. Baal, Moloch. So, they built monuments where they'd kill kids, by fire. That developed right through, and it's through in British history with the Wicker Man. Do you know about the Wicker Man? That was a pagan situation. There was a movie made about it, but it was basically where they'd fill up a huge wicker statue full of people and set it on fire. So it's sacrificed by fire at Bohemian Grove, which is every 2 years is a meeting in the Redwood forest outside of San Francisco with 2,000 of the world's top captains of industry and business and CIA and all the spooks, but it's male only. It's very gay, and it's pretty creepy. Okay, they do a cremation of care ceremony at the end every year, where in front of a 40-foot owl statue, which the owl represents Moloch to them. There's a few reasons for this, but they perform, and this is in hoods and cloaks and the whole shebang, mate. They perform the cremation of care ceremony, and this isn't just reliving their haughty old days of being fun-loving college students. This is serious stuff, and they sacrifice by fire in front of the owl statue. What they say is an effigy, but there's a whole lot of things going on. And just as a quick offshoot, might I digress that Stephen Paddock, the shooter of all these people who murdered from Mandalay, he owns an adjoining property right next to that farm that they hold. Now this has been going on since the start of last century. It's and it has a lot to do with Moloch, Baal, and you can transmute that to a form of Luciferian satanic worship, right? Luciferian and satanic worship, it's not just about a big red guy running around with a pitchfork and horns. It's rubbish. Okay, so this is about bad and good. It's about good and bad. It's about having the agnostic knowledge to be able to define in your own gut which is which, and advancing. And now it's no use being agnostically strong if you're not politically, socially strong and aware of what's going on, or you know who AOC is, or you know what's going on in your backyard, but also standing in an interpretation of the evil that's behind a lot of this helps allay a lot of the fear and makes you a stronger fighter against it. Yeah? Back to you, mate.
Okay, right. So I'm going to cut it because I need to process all this. I need to look, because it's not really, I really struggle with the dark stuff. For whatever reason. And that's probably some of the reason why I don't know about it. So I'll process this and we'll go from there. Right, lovely listeners. I wanted to do that because as I've been doing the news with DB and we go through this learning, because it's about being open, right? And I don't know about this stuff. But yet it comes up in the news when DB's doing a news story. I'm thinking, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I know it's got like a dark tinge to it, but past that, I don't have a clue what it means because I can't bring myself to learn it. But I'm working with somebody now that knows about this stuff, so I want to learn about it. I thought you might want to learn about it. So when you hear it come up in a news story, you sort of know where DB's coming from and maybe a little bit of background. Right, okay, in for your finals, DB, and we'll shut this one down.
Well, thanks. That was real thoughtful of you. I appreciate that, because we've got to look holistically at the enemy we face. And you can't beat an enemy totally until you understand them totally. And that's what's going on at the moment. I think the Q directive and Trump and the team that are behind this planet-wide, the alliance, know exactly what's going on. And they're doing exactly the right thing at perfect timing. But it's a long haul, and people, I just want to say to folks out there, there's just been, you're in with the woo-woo stuff again. There's been an eclipse. There's been a whole equinox. The bad guys use that date that has just passed and the energy from the moon to be able to also draw energy and amplify some of their bad deeds, okay? But that's sort of, by and by. This is going to make us feel drained and tired and also rather flat and sometimes a little bit beaten and a little bit, get our shoulders down. Don't get your shoulders down. Keep your chin up. You've got to be able to understand that you're going to take a few hits like this. We all are. We've got creeps in the media sounding out that, the harder they are and the more they panic, the louder they're going to hiss and spit because they're clawing at the rim of that toilet bowl, mate. We've got our finger on the flush button. So, just chin up to everyone, and I reckon we're doing pretty good. I'm loving doing these shows with you, Rhea. It's really good to get the word out to people. Again, What I've talked about, people might think is absolute tosh, and all power to you if you do. It's your decision to make about what's happening. But there are some powers that be. If you look inside your gut, you'll know that things aren't right. There's some nasty elements at work here, and there's also some good elements. So just ask your gut and go with that, and all the best to you. Back to you, Ray.
One question before we go. Is there such a thing in your view as someone that's a good pagan?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's white Wiccans out there that do nothing but heal. They've had their businesses attacked by Codex Alimentarius coming in 2009, which stopped a lot of healers, stopped a lot of just, alternative healing and medicine going, so Big Pharma could get even more money, and it's wrong. So there's people with good hearts that are using old practices to heal. That's white Wicca, that's pagan, and that's good in my book. Back to you, Rat.
Good, because I celebrate all solstices and all equinoxes, so I sort of relate to the earthy side and natural remedies and natural law, if you like, or that I see in paganism. So that's good to know, DB.
Well, that's a good use of frequency and vibrational energy. And Nikola Tesla and Einstein would tell you both themselves, and not some dumb bass player from down the bottom of the planet, because, there's so many more people out there that know so much more about this than I, but I've got the ability to talk to you about this now, and hopefully we can all talk about this together, because we're all going through this one phase together. This is an enlightening period. This, if we play our cards right, we can go into a whole golden age of technology and use of perfunctory tech, medicines, the old ones, grinding up leaves in a pestle, right up to frequency modulation, as long as it's for the benefit of the human soul and the human condition only and always, without one little wrinkle in it. It's got to be only for the benefit of people and never for the dark. Back to you, mate.
Okay, there you go, guys. There's a bit of woo-woo on the end. I did promise DB we'd cover it. I wasn't sure. I've sort of wrestled with it a bit, and there you go, though. That's just an open, honest thing, right? Is you make of it what you will. As a network owner myself, I don't want to be in that position where I make decisions for other people. I mean, who am I to make decisions for other people? I'm not. Do you know what I mean? It's for you guys to navigate it. Pull from it what you want. Wherever you hear this on, just leave a comment if you want to. No, other than no personal attacks, just say your piece. Do you know what I mean? Don't forget to catch us on Sundays, Sunday Long Live Radio. You'll catch me on D Live, so just type in your browser Reabo, which is REA with a space BOW, and then D with a space live, Reabo D Live. That's where your comments come up on screen. That's where I read them from every Sunday of the year. We start at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard on a Sunday, 10 a.m. It's actually British summertime, but I call it GMT because I'm concerned that people don't know what BST is. So we start at 10 a.m. UK and 9 p.m. New South Wales. Every Sunday I'm on and I read out your comments, and I'm joined by other hosts. But meanwhile, we're going to catch you on the other side of this with more great content.